Last week, President Trump announced his decision to reduce or eliminate American funding to UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. Trump explained his decision by referencing corruption in UNRWA, Palestinian refusals to negotiate peace, and Palestinian misuse of foreign aid money to fund and encourage terrorism. So why is Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu quietly encouraging President Trump to reconsider? Why is he suggesting moving UNRWA funds to the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees? What's even the difference between those two bodies? After Israel's War of Independence in 1948, many Arabs remained and became Israeli citizens. And many left, either by choice or to escape the fighting, and they became what are today known as the Palestinian refugees. In 1949, UNRWA was formed specifically to provide assistance to these refugees. And then in 1950, the UNHCR was formed to administer to all other refugees in the world. The goal of UNHCR is to help refugees return home if that's possible, or if it's not, to help them and their children integrate into their host countries, thus reducing the overall number of refugees in the world over time. Some 800,000 Jews were exiled from their homes in Arab countries, and to this day have never been allowed to return. However, they are not considered refugees, but they are now citizens, some of Israel or of other countries. And this model is what the work of the UNHCR has been based on all the way to this very day. UNRWA does the opposite. It keeps all descendants of Palestinian refugees as being refugees themselves for an unlimited number of generations. This is partly because some Arab countries have denied citizenship to Palestinians as a symbol of ongoing resistance to Israel's very existence. But even those Palestinians who have obtained citizenship and built whole new lives in other countries are still considered refugees by UNRWA. For example, take Stephen, an American citizen born in Bluefield, West Virginia. He's a refugee. Or Nada, born in Montreal, Canada. She's a refugee. Or the famous and wealthy fashion model Gigi Hadid, born and raised in LA. She's a refugee too. Some of their parents were born in places like Nicaragua, Jordan, and Holland. But if even one of their grandparents was a Palestinian refugee, even if they are citizens of America or Canada, even if they've never even visited the Middle East in their entire lives, even if they don't want to be called refugees, they and their children and their great-great-great-grandchildren will always be refugees, according to UNRWA, no matter what. This is not the case with any other group of people in the entire world, and for good reason, because it's insane. It contradicts international laws such as the 1951 Refugee Convention, and the result is that Palestinians are the only refugee group in the world that is actually increasing over time. According to a 2012 report by the United States Senate, if you use the same definition that UNHCR and international law applies to everyone else in the world, there are only 30,000 actual Palestinian refugees, instead of 5 million. UNRWA produces other problems as well. For example, its children's textbooks teach incitement and hatred against Israelis and Jews. Entire armories of rockets and missiles have been found stored in the basements of United Nations schools, and much, much more. So why is Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu quietly encouraging President Trump to not cut funding? The answer relates to a surprising aspect of international and Israeli law that I discussed on I-24 News. But what's important is that the Israeli Supreme Court has held since 1974 that whether it's occupation or not, Israel must follow the international laws related to occupation.
All right.
Now, in this particular case, the relevant laws are the Hague Conventions, Articles 42 through 47. Israel's obligations include providing for Palestinian welfare, education, health, transportation, and more. These tasks are subsidized by foreign aid money and by the work of international organizations such as UNRWA. In the absence of such aid, these obligations would fall squarely on Israel. Only time will tell what Israel, the United States, and the United Nations choose to do.